Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here with the DailySheeple.com's News Shot. I'm going to start off today, of course, with the lead story, one that kind of hit us by surprise as an assassin went and took out the Russian ambassador to Turkey today, right in the public. And of course, LiveLeak had the actual assassination right there. Guy got blown away, shot in the back. DailySheeple.com has it caught on tape. Allahu Akbar, we die in Aleppo, you die here. Russian ambassador to Turkey shot dead at an art gallery. It says the Turkish police stormed Ankara after the Russian ambassador to Turkey, Andrei Karlov, was shot dead at an art gallery as he was about to give a speech. It's being reported that the gunman was yelling Allahu Akbar, meaning God is great. We die in Aleppo, you die here, just before he shot Karlov at close range, killing him. The shooting was caught on tape by journalists covering the exhibition. The shooter, identified as 22-year-old Mevlut Mert Altintis, also yelled, "I will not leave here without dying." Local report says he was a Turkish policeman. He was reported to have been neutralized, and a bloody censored picture of his body was also posted on social media. Right afterwards, the American government was reporting that a security event was happening at their Turkish embassy nearby as well. And a lot of people were asking the question, was this a Franz Ferdinand moment? You know, the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand in World War I that launched the world into war. I don't really think that this is one of those instances, but I'm sure that Putin's not going to sit on his laurels after something like this took place. And of course, I think the Turkish president reached out to Vladimir Putin to, say, hey, look, we didn't do this. We don't know if they were behind it or not. I guess it remains to be seen how this plays out. But certainly, you don't want to see anybody shot in cold blood. Not like that. Not in the back. But, that's the way that this game is played these days. There's nothing fair about it. And it just goes to show you how volatile that region actually is. And it brings me to my next story over at Zero Hedge. They put that Putin lashed out at Obama today, saying, show some proof or shut up. Now, that's what I like to hear. Listen to this. Putin has had enough of the relentless barrage of the U.S. accusation that he personally hacked the U.S. presidential election. Now, mind you, he doesn't come off to me as a hacker. Putin's not that guy, He's the guy on the horseback, and flying the airplanes and jumping out of them and all that kind of stuff. He's a manly man doing manly things. He's not doing hacking and sitting behind a computer. Come on. And that's not a knock on any hackers out there, by the way. All I'm saying is he doesn't fit the profile. Now, the Russian president's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, said on Friday that the U.S. must either stop accusing Russia of meddling in its elections or prove it. Peskov said it was, quote, indecent of the United States to groundlessly accuse Russia of intervention in its elections. Quote, you need to either stop talking about it or finally show some kind of proof. Otherwise, it just looks very indecent, Peskov told reporters in Tokyo, where Putin is meeting with Japan Prime Minister Abe, responding to the latest accusations that Russia was responsible for hacker attacks. Peskov also warned that Obama's threat to retaliate to the alleged Russian hack is against both American and international law, hinting open-ended escalation should Obama take the podium today and launch a new cyber war with Russia. I don't think he did that quite openly, but who's to say we're not already in one? Now, previously on Thursday, Peskov told the AP that the report was laughable nonsense, while Russian foreign ministry spooks like Maria Zakharova accused Western media of being a shill and a mouthpiece of various power groups. And she also added that it's not the general public who's being manipulated. She said the general public nowadays can distinguish the truth. It's the mass media that is manipulating themselves. I have to agree. I think that those that have a thirst to be informed have sharpened their skills dramatically since the advent of the internet, to where people do know how to discern the truth, or at least how to dig for it. And that's not to say that we're not right or sometimes that we're wrong. You know, of course, we're wrong sometimes, we're right sometimes. But as you grow, you know, what this does is it kind of ushers in more of an atmosphere of responsibility, of personal responsibility, meaning that you just don't blindly trust the mainstream media and the government. You know, I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Some of the crappiest lines I've ever heard in my life. And for years and years, generations blindly trusted government. And you look at what government's done over the years. And again, me personally, I look back and I can't see anything that the government's done right, any programs that they've run right, that they haven't run right into the ground. Budgetary stuff, they've run our country right into the dirt, into the ground. All because everything's so politicized. You know, this is all this is. It's nonsense. Meanwhile, on Friday, Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, told state television network Russia 24 that he was dumbstruck by the NBC report that alleges that Russian President Vladimir Putin was personally involved in an election hack. Like I said, he's not one of those typer guys, you know, one of those guys behind the computer. Nope. Just doesn't come off like that. The report cited U.S. intelligence officials that now believe with a high level of confidence that Putin became personally involved in a secret campaign to influence the outcome of the U.S. presidential election. Quote, I think that is just silly, and the futility of the attempt to convince somebody of this is absolutely obvious. That's what Lavrov told the news outlet. So the Russians, of course, are asking, okay, if that's the case, show your evidence or shut the hell up. I kind of like that philosophy. And again, you know, you take a look at what's going on here and this campaign, if you will. This is right out of the McCarthy-esque 1945 to 1955 time period here in the United States when you had that Red Scare going on. I mean, they're pulling out that again. It's like, do you think people are that stupid? Perhaps, you know, judging by the numbers, judging by your OECD statistics, you could deduce probably that people are dumbed down to the point where you might be able to get away with it. But I just don't think that's the case. I think that people are waking up and snapping out of the trance and coming to find out that, wow, you know, this isn't as rosy as we thought it was. The government, maybe they don't have our best interest at heart. Man, maybe the mainstream media is not telling us the whole truth. And the rest is history, of course, because once you go down that rabbit hole, there's no coming back. Jon Rappaport, Activist Post, has a piece by Jon Rappaport today, The War Against the People, Fearing and Loathing in New York and D.C. I love Jon Rappaport. Again, another one of my favorite writers out there. He says, Vladimir Putin is the secret president of the United States. I bet you didn't know that. Yep. He says the U.S. is now the USSR. It's all over. Trump's a commie who took orders from Putin. He's a red. This was his game all along. He's a billionaire commie. Here's how this would play out in a reasonable court in the judge's chambers. Prosecutor, Your Honor, we're prepped to offer proof that Putin personally influenced the election in favor of Trump. Trump's lawyer, come on, that's nonsense. This is a ruse. The judge says, Mr. Prosecutor, what is the nature of your proof? And the prosecutor says, well, we will bring several CIA people to the stand and they will say they have proof. And the judge says back, he says, will they back up those statements with evidence so Mr. Trump's attorney can cross-examine them? Prosecutor says, no, that's not how it works, judgy boy. Secrets must be kept. Of course, the judge would say, not in my court. End of story. Think about this, John says. What will the major media do when their latest fiction about the Russians and Trump sink below the waves? They're lying so hard and so often. Is there an end to any of it? Of course, the answer is no. They are committed. They can't turn back. They're committing slow suicide in full view of the public. It almost feels like they want to go down. Stop me before I kill again. Men and women of the news, whose whole act depends on securing trust and admiration from the public, are squandering whatever's left, all in the space of a few months. Well, they didn't believe that outrageous lie. Let's try one that's even more ridiculous. Now they want to censor news which fails to fit their picture. And if they don't watch out, they'll take down Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, their enablers with them. And people find new social media outposts. Trump, love him or hate him, whatever, is playing his role. He's virtually winning a new election every time the major media slam him. And he comes back with a tweet that simply announces, you're full of it. Influential papers like the New York Times and Washington Post have gotten a free pass for as long as they've been in business. Their staffs have developed a massive sense of their own importance, their own infallibility. They're like popes who've suddenly been exposed in leaked documents for falsely claiming Jesus wanted the Catholic Church built in his name. George Orwell said this, quote, a totalitarian state is in effect a theocracy, and its ruling caste, in order to keep its position, has to be thought of as infallible. Recognize we're in a unique situation here. This has never happened before, certainly not in a highly sophisticated civilization where the official means of communication and communicating information were limited to a few basic sources. Those sources have now lost faith with the people. Instead, huge numbers of news outlets have emerged. The mainstream media is beginning to realize how great the shift is. A centralized reality splitting up equals a centralized and hypnotized perception of reality splitting up. Centralized reality, by its very nature, presents a false picture. In the absence of that monopoly, many new true stories emerge that were previously hidden. Each of these stories is, in effect, a new reality holding a candle in the dark. Virtually all major news sources agreeing on the substance of virtually all important stories over the course of decades is completely unnatural and, of course, absurd. That agreement must be engineered, concocted, invented. The consistent concoction is dissolving in the minds of the public. It no longer holds sway. Hillary Clinton and her supporters should be thanked for contributing to this breakup. The public is viewing their actions as those of a child who refuses to admit she herself is at fault and instead throws blame in every possible direction. Thousands of fake news sites, the Russians, Putin, pollsters who failed to warn of impending doom, the electoral college systems, the deplorables, WikiLeaks, the FBI. It's not our fault. It's everybody else's fault. It always seems to be that way, isn't it? Keep finding new people to blame. How about the Chinese or the Brexit supporters? You know, some guy who owns a gas station in Death Valley. Maybe a massive tribe who lives on the dark side of the moon and illegally voted for Trump. You know? Interestingly, the big donors to Clinton's campaign, failed campaign, who are shocked and irate after forking over their money aren't eagerly drinking the Putin Kool-Aid. It's too bad. The CIA, of course, they're connected with the Washington Post, and they can pump out as many Putin did it articles as they want to, but the big Clinton donors are unimpressed, and people are even more unimpressed. He says, don't look for major media outlets to give those donors much face time. It would explode the blame game narrative. And he's absolutely right. It certainly would. You see, could you imagine if, and he brings this up in his article, and you can read the rest of it again at Activist Post, but could you imagine if somebody like Julian Assange or Project Veritas's James O'Keefe, what would happen if they were vaulted to the top of the press hierarchy? You know? What would happen then? if we actually had people that had an interest to report the news because, or to follow the truth because the truth is the story. Rule number 1 of journalism. If you could just get back to that. And then number 2, don't enter into any entangling alliances that would prevent you from following rule number 1. Could you imagine if we had people of that ilk that had that character in the press? That's not to say you could go back to sleep, but I would certainly sleep better at night knowing that they were running the show or they were top dogs or in the hierarchy. It's funny that they have to use this fake narrative over and over again and just people don't buy into it. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And people are finding out and they feel it. They feel that it's crazy. And I totally agree with them. And it has some good benefits as well. Of course, we're seeing more and more people flocking to alternative media and independent media as never before. So keep on calling us fake news. It seems to be working for us. And finally, we have the Daily Mirror. I love it when I get to report on science because, boy, I'll tell you, there's a lot of doom and gloom in science. There really is. And this takes the cake, if you ask me. I mean, don't get me wrong, CERN is bad, but so are 13-foot robots. That's what I'm saying. And according to the Daily Mirror over in the UK, they're building a massive robot, a secret, terrifying 13-foot avatar war robot that's learning how to walk and mimic human movements. That's right. They've programmed a 1-ton robot that can walk and mimic human movements. This according to the Daily Mirror. The Method 1 machine is 4 meters tall, and when it stomps, it leaves the ground shaking. The designer is Vitaly Bulgarov. The giant robot built in South Korea works by repeating the actions of its pilot sitting inside by moving its enormous arms and legs up and down. Basically, it's got a cockpit. And if you go to the Daily Mirror, and I'll put the link in the description box, you will see this thing. And it's interesting because, of course, you know, the technology I don't think is there yet to mass produce these things in a cost-effective manner. However, I think the technology is there for these to be autonomous and for them to do some pretty bad damage. It's never good, if you ask me, when humanity starts building 13-foot tall avatar-looking war robots. I just don't feel the warm fuzzy. Even though the designer says, listen to this. He says, Vitaly's remaining tight-lipped about the robot, but says it could be used to solve problems rather than for evil. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it could wait tables. Or perhaps it could, take over some infrastructure projects, or do some high-risk jobs where people don't, you don't want to put their lives at risk. Sure, there's all sorts of good things that it could do to solve problems rather than for evil. The problem is, as we've learned through history time and time again, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. And you don't build 13-foot tall avatar war robots with good intentions in mind. I don't care what you say, because I'm sure that good old Vitaly there is military-industrial complex. Now, that's where the money at. Come on, of course that's where it's at. You're telling me DARPA isn't eating this up? Come on. It's crazy. Nothing good comes from building 13-foot tall war robots. We're not going to have service robots 13-foot tall. Yes. Master, would you like some tea and crumpets? No, I don't think so. This is great. I'm Joe Joseph. This was the dailysheeple.com news shot. And I will have one again for you real soon. Have a great night.